Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, E-Steam The Sands of Time. It's action and adventure in ancient Egypt in this terrific teen time travel romance. Get your copy of E-Steam The Sands of Time at your favorite online bookseller today. When I attended the Black Comic Book Festival, I perused several vendor tables looking for comics to review. And when I saw Black Sands on one of the vendor tables, I knew I was going to make a purchase. Now, I had heard about Black Sands from Chris Miller in one of his videos a while back, and I read the Zero issue online on the Black Sands website. And I wanted to buy it back then, but I just didn't have my money right. But I had my money right for this show, and I was ready to make a purchase. And I was going to buy the Black Sands comic, but the young woman working the table told me that they had this Ultimate Edition, and I decided to splurge and get this hardcover edition. And I'm glad that I did get this hardcover edition, because this comic is one that gets my highest recommendation. This is a comic that every brother and sister who's into science fiction and fantasy needs to go out here and read. And this is a comic that I say that you could give to kids of all ages. Now, Black Sands is a comic manga series that infuses Dragon Ball Z type storytelling and manga type storytelling with the Egyptian gods and Egyptian mythology. And that fusion gives us a story that tells us a tale about the days of early ancient Kemet, which many call Egypt, and the Heliopolitan gods. So in this story, we are seeing the early days of Heliopolis and the early days of ancient Egypt, where the god Ra, who is the pharaoh of Kemet, is trying to teach these savage people, and he has his 4 children, and they are going by their Heliopolitan names, or what many call their Kemetic names, which is Asar, which is Osiris, Aset, which is Isis, Set, which is Seth, and I don't know the name of Nephthys, but in her Kemetic name, but I know that they all have these Kemetic names, because I had to do research for it for the Isis series, and I had to do it for Isis. And in this one, we see that Kemet and Kush are 2 countries that are together, and they are like the United States and Canada, and that's shown on the first page. So we see this right here, Kemet and Kush, which is Egypt and Nubia, and it shows the relationship between Egypt and Nubia. And it does so in an amazing way, because we look at the art of this comic, and the art in this comic, it just really pops. I mean, this is some of the best art I have seen in an independent comic, and I've looked at a lot of independent comics, and this is up there with some of the best indie comics out there. I mean, and the story is really good because it shows us these young godlings learning about their roles in the kingdom and learning how to do things in a diplomatic manner. Because in the first issue, we see them going to visit the kingdom of, we see the Kemetic gods getting ready to visit the kingdom of Kush, and there we see Asar getting ready to go into some sort of Dragon Ball Z type challenge with Bess, the future god of luck. So it's the first issue gives us a great laying out of a storyline, and we start to see all of these characters learning about their powers and abilities, and we're starting to see them learning about themselves. So the comic does a great job of showing us ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic culture and ancient Kemetic mythology, and it shows us, you know, the early days of these young godlings as they're learning about their powers, as they're learning about their abilities, and as they are establishing their kingdom. And I liked a lot about this comic. I love a lot of the designs. I love a lot of the conceptual designs, and I like the way that they gave them all the natural hair, and they showed natural hair tones and skin tones and stuff like that. And they did an amazing job on this comic, and this is one of those comics that you just definitely have to pick up, and I really recommend that you go out here and get the hard version, because this is the type of comic that you cannot really enjoy it unless you're holding it in your hand. Now, I looked at the digital version online and I was floored by the digital version, but when I have this hardcover version in my hands with the glossy paper and I could see all of the artwork and color come to life in my hands, that was an amazing experience, and it makes this comic just even that much better. So I really recommend you go out here and get this comic, but you have to get it in the paper versions or splurge even more and get the hardcover version, because as I see it, the hardcover version is definitely worth it. This is one of those comics that you just have to have in your collection. I mean, if you've bought Milestone comics, you need to get Black Sands, because Black Sands is one of those comics that really, it just really makes you think. I mean, and as a guy who has done extensive research for my ISIS series and The Goddess Next Door, I mean, I learned some things from this Black Sands comic about Nubia and Egypt from this book, and I learned a lot from it, and it's just a great, well done comic, meticulously researched, meticulously well developed concept, well executed concept, and I would love to see more of this series, and I want to go out here and buy more of this series. So if there are more books coming out, I definitely want to pick them up, but I recommend you go out here and get yourself a copy of Black Sands. This is a comic that is definitely worth it, and it was worth every penny of all the money that I spent on it. So this is one that, again, gets my highest recommendation. I'm going to leave a link to purchase it in the description box, and I'm hoping you pick up your copy of Black Sands so you can see what's so great about this comic.